I'm really, I don't even have words to find elated, excited, thrilled, joyful, whatever word, and grateful to be welcoming today to this first, what I'm calling Soul Talking sessions, in which we have recording artists of note talking about their experiences, in particular, talking between themselves too about how life is for them in the 21st century. And in particular today, I'm so happy to welcome two people who I've known for a long time. I've probably done their bios, who knows how many times, interviews, how many times, seen them in performance quite a few times. And it just really, for me, Will Downing and Maysa really represent a particular kind of artist who is forward thinking and has really taken on the challenges of being independent, so to speak, in the 21st century. And I thought it would be great to talk to both of you about, how there's been the adjustment of dealing with, the world as we know it now in the music industry. Since I know both of you at different times have been signed to record labels, major record labels, and talk about the difference between then and now, and what are the challenges, but also what are the triumphs? What really makes you feel good about the choices you've made? So I don't have a particular, agenda, like in terms of how this is going to flow. But I'm going to start out with an obvious question. So as I said, both of you have at different times been signed to different record companies. So firstly, and whoever wants to kick it off, kick it off. What was that experience like for you back in the day? Hey, that's all right. By the way, everybody, this is impromptu. You're in each other's homes, so to speak. So
I love
anything, I had to turn off my, might as well make it real. I had to make sure my laundry stopped drying. And Mason said, "Would you have to stop doing? You have to make sure your dishes were done." So we want things. It's called being human.
My son, he works pretty long hours, so
yeah, I got you.
Day off.
That's the best time to get what you want out the deal. Like,
okay.
When you're on a Zoom call, you can't say no now. Listen, can I borrow? Don't forget you're on camera. Like,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Always take it.
So let's talk about just whichever one you want to talk first about that experience of what it was like back in the day for you, signed to a record company, and then at some point making a transition into being independent, so to speak.
All right, Mr. Down, I'll let you go first.
Oh. let the old guy go first, right?
Well, that would be me. But go on.
Yeah. Well, I was with Universal, what is now Universal, or in the same system for 25 years. And it was interesting, how things have changed from going to a record company, almost AKA bank, to make these records and get this money to make these records. And then, to be independent and find out how the onion gets peeled back. And it's kind of like, oh, in some aspects, you miss the old days because someone paid for, or actually there was a loan for you to make these records, and the cost of promoting and radio promotions and this and that publicity. And you thought that you were getting robbed then. Then when you become independent, it's kind of like, oh, I gotta pay for that. Like, I need a publicity agent, and they got their hand out, and they got a radio person, they got their hand out. You have a distributor, they got their hand out. So it's a tough one. Sometimes I sit and wonder, like, how I miss those days. But then, the great thing is when you do have a record that does well, you get all the glory that comes along with it as well. So you get the pat on the back, and there's some financial gains to it as well. So, it's different, but both Maysa and I we're surviving and finding a way, especially in this digital age.
All right, Maysa, what you got to say about it?
Everything that Will just said, and also I remember, back in the day when, there would be a car service picking you up, and you had to sign for it, and then there was all the, the glitz and the glam of of that part of it, but like Will said, you have to pay for all that eventually, and not seeing the royalties from my first album that was on a major label. Now I just recently got the report, and I still owe $250,000. I'm like, I don't know what in the world. I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy amount of money. But yeah, we did strings at Abbey Road. Like we did like major, very expensive things. You know what I'm saying? So those experiences, while they were wonderful, I'm still paying for them to this day with you know, with no end in sight, because I don't know when that's going to be. But the good thing about it is that the master is going to be at the 33 years or something like that, or some amount of years.
Yeah,
Like,
I
get
think
the
it's
master back.
33 or 35, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm close. I'm almost there. Almost there, getting that back. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you both reference things, and one of the things that I think is really important for people to know. I mean, when I say people, I mean your audience and people who don't necessarily understand this part of the industry. You know, you said at the beginning, Will, it's really like a loan. It's like a bank
Oh
loan.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
people
it's a
don't
loan.
understand that. You say that to people, they say, "What are you talking about?" You know, it's really, you know, it's a very old-fashioned way of keeping people. You know, it was a chain to the contracts, and we know many times, and we've heard about people like Prince and people who said, you know, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, but the thing is, people don't understand that concept. Um, and so really, what I figured out a long time ago, and I'm sure both of you can attest to this, is really the only way recording artists made money in any way back in the day or subsequently has been by performing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you
Still,
Correct.
don't
That's the
perform, you don't have no money. So
yeah,
to
back in the
speak.
day, like people made records to
yeah,
go on tour. That I mean, they
right.
made
Yeah.
records so they could go on tour and then, you know, sell the music live and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was the thing. That was the thing, making music to make the tour happen, because that's where you made your money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're pretty
I mean,
much
and
pro.
obviously you're the bigger artists. You know, they were paid uh a correct royalty. I'm trying to find the right words.
Okay.
And the bigger artists are also the ones who kind of carry the label, and also would carry the artists that didn't necessarily bring in revenue. So it's a very strange and catchy, you know, sticky sort of situation, because you know, I learned years ago from our mutual friend Luther, who
Yeah.
said, take as much money as you can from these companies as an advance. You know, all these years I was saying, I don't want that money, you know, knowing I have to pay it back. But then I heard him say one day, he was like, get as much money as you can, and it's their responsibility to get it back. And if you never see a dime, at least you got something up front.
Right.
Interesting. Interesting.
So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
schools of thought, you know, where you feel like, yeah, there is some sort of a servitude that, you know, you've taken this money and you owe them, but at the same time, get as much as you can, because you may not see that money again. And
Right.
and you have access to the money that you make during your shows that no one else has access to,
Right.
unless you make what is a 360 deal, where you and a record company kind of sharing everything. You know, you're sharing and your sales, you're sharing everything that you book. You know, it's a percentage sort of thing. And even then, it harkens back to the old attitude of, I'm going to advance you $250,000. Now, everything that you do until we make this money back, you know, is shared. And so,
Yeah.
but you know, if you need money, I mean, that's one way to get it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right. How about you, Mesa? What was your experience of that whole, your parallel experience of that? How was that for you?
I mean, basically, but I mean, for many years, so many years, I've made music for these other companies, and I think I've worked with 3 companies so far. So the first one was on a major label. The second 3 albums, but second, third, and fourth album were mostly I'm on. I think it's called Encoded Music.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was cool. It was cool. I enjoyed the time there, and also my time at Shawnee was great. I mean, I had a good time there. But I just thought there was some point where in my life there I have to kind of, I wanted to own everything I did, because I have shared a lot where these companies will own my music for the rest of my life and for
Yeah.
my son's life. And And that kind of bothered me. So I got to the point where I wanted to say, okay, now to leave a legacy for my son and my future grandkids or children in my family, like I wanted to own that, own my masters. And I listened to Prince, I listened to other artists who were doing it. I watched Will turn his career into that. And I was really impressed by, you know, Walter Beasley. I mean, there are a lot of people who influenced me to take the leap of faith, you know, and make this happen. I had a great time at these record companies. I mean, like I said, they were treating me in the early days, especially, they were treating me very well and doing all the great stuff. But like I said, I still owe that money, and that's just something I want to owe for a long time, and I don't want that on me anymore.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Hey, this new record that you're about to release will make up for all the money that they say that you owe. You're
Right.
fine. They got their money back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Well, you know, yeah. So a couple of things before I want to talk. One area I really want to have you both talk about is the whole thing of creative control. But we'll get to that in a moment. Before we get to that, just so I can, you know, for the benefit of those who are going to be tuning into this. So, Maysa, what point, you know, what year did you say, okay, that's it, I'm going to start my own thing, and Blue Velvet Records, correct?
Yeah, Blue Velvet Soul. Yep.
Blue Velvet Soul. So when was that, like I didn't track whether that was this year. Oh, not this year. Last
No, it was
year.
in 2018. So it's been a few years. 2018, I decided.
Yeah.
To take that leap of faith, and you know, the first because I had a lot of work, you know, live work, I was able to survive without having a deal, you know, like kind of thing. So I was blessed in that aspect. The 2018, 2019, so I started putting out my first single. It's called You're Not Alone. I put that out, and then I started building singles, and then last year I put out my first 4 singles in a CD that are my first printing ever. So
Really?
it was really fun. Yeah, so it's called the Fab First 4.
Yes.
It did really well. I designed this kind of campaign where I put it in a blue velvet box, and I signed them. They were all like the first 200 people would get or first 100 people would get a special signing, and they would get numbered and all that kind of stuff. And that went really well. It so much so that I sold 200 of those actually instead of
Wow.
100. It's really cool. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's a good thing. It kept me going through the pandemic. It's, you know, the label has kept me going through the pandemic, which has been amazing. I didn't think that would happen, but it did.
Well, yeah, I get it. Well, we'll talk more in a moment about the creative aspect, because you just touched on quite a few things there. So how about you, Will? When did you start becoming independent, so to speak?
I'm going to say it was 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And I had a meeting with the record company that I was with at that time. And we sat down, and I said, so what's your marketing plan for the new record? They were like, well, and at this point, I think MySpace was still up, you know, like a thing. And they were
Those are
like,
my ancient days, MySpace. I mean, some of the people who are going to listen to this would be like, well, what's MySpace? What was that?
What is MySpace? Right, yeah. So
Go
they were
ahead.
like, they came to me and they was like, well, you know, you can open up under the MySpace page, and then you can do this on the internet, and you can do this on the internet. And then I kind of looked literally mid-meal, and I just said, okay, so wait a minute. Are we talking about the same internet? You guys got your own internet? And they were like, no. You know, we need you to do your thing on the internet. I said, well, if that's what you want me to do, I mean, I can do that. If that's your marketing plan, what do I need you for? You know,
Right.
like it was one of those things where you look behind the veil, and it was like, okay, well, now that everyone's kind of looking at the internet as the main source of getting information out, and for people to attain information, you know, the day of the strip ad, or the day of you having some sort of exclusive anything to a radio station, like those days are gone. So it's like, well, if it's the same internet and you just advancing me a few $1,000s, I can do that. What the hell do I need?
Right.
And then I got to hear all this. And you know, the bad thing is, from an artist standpoint, and I'm sure that Maysa is going to agree, is, you know, when things go wrong, like they dump on you like you would not freaking believe. Everything is your fault. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you turn in a good record, they're excited, oh my God, it's a great record. The record doesn't do well. It's because you didn't,
Right.
and you didn't, and you didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
Right.
well,
you,
Right.
you
yeah,
know, this is a kind of behind the scenes stuff. So the behind the scenes stuff, so to speak, that people don't know about. I mean, I know, from knowing both of you and many other people, people think, oh yeah, you turn in the record, or if you're lucky enough to be turning in the record, because a lot of times back old days, you didn't turn in a record. Somebody was breathing over your shoulder to make
yeah,
sure that the record was what they wanted it to be. So,
exactly.
but I get what you're saying. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, that is what happens. We
Yeah.
see we see what's out on the so to speak, out front. But what we don't know, a lot of people don't know, is that, that does exactly what happens. Will, then
Oh
the
yeah,
artist gets the, well, it's not the A&R person. You didn't listen to the A&R person. You wanted your
Right.
own songs on there. Da 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 da. Now look, so it's very seldom that I've known a record company in my entire life of working with recording artists that actually fessed up and said, no, actually, we dropped the ball.
well,
Right.
yeah. I mean, there's always some sort of ulterior motive when it comes to a company as well.
Yeah.
If there's another artist that's very similar to what Mesa and I might do, and they're releasing record, they'll go, okay, well, behind closed doors, they'll
Yeah.
say, okay, well, we worked Mesa's record, for this amount of time. Okay, let's go to the radio station. Let's go with this new single from this other artist. We'll tell the radio station to drop the Mesa single and start
Mm.
playing this single, and then they'll come
Wow.
to you and kind of say, well, the record's kind of falling off, and
Uh-huh.
and but that's the way it works,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
and then they kind of tell you, well, man, maybe next time and you should try to sound like, and you should, and
Oh,
once
Oh,
yeah.
you're an artist, no one, we're artists for a reason. We have
Yes.
something creative to contribute to the artistic process, and
Correct.
let
right.
us be ourselves. So that's the
Right.
joy of being independent. You can do it your way, and if it flops, then
Yeah.
it flops, and it's your fault. But if
Yeah,
if it
and then you
hits,
could take
you know,
responsibility. You say, well, yeah,
exactly,
okay. So
exactly.
before we move on to the creative aspect of this, 'cause I think that's really important for people to know about the creative freedom that does come with being your own being your own boss, so to speak, with your own music. So before we get to that, so Will, when you had to make that decision or choice to say, okay, I'm going to do this myself, was it difficult? I mean, was it challenging for you? Did you spend a lot of sleepless nights wondering if you were doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
made plenty of mistakes because I had never gone through that process before.
Right.
Um, Shoot, I remember the first thing I released. I released something called Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and I
Yeah.
decided to do them as EPs. And the
I
first one I
remember.
released, yeah, the first one I released, I had written it down and sent it to Mastering One Way. And I had like these ISDN numbers that you have to have for every
Uh-huh.
record. I had
Yeah.
them in a different sequence. And then when the record came out, on the record, it said one thing, but then it
Oh
played
no.
something else.
Right.
Oh
So,
man. Oh no,
and here
no.
I am. I'm here with like 1,000 copies of this record, and they were
Right.
all wrong. And
Oh
Oh,
now,
no.
and so I have to go back and remaster. And literally, my family and I, we're sitting here opening up the CDs,
Yeah.
taking out the CDs that were the wrong sequence. I had to go have new ones made, and then putting the new
Wow.
ones back in
yeah.
into the
Yeah.
package. And then we had 1,000 of them. So
Oh
I
man.
made a ton of mistakes and lost plenty of money learning the process.
Yeah.
Not to mention, and I'm not trying to monopolize all the time, but not to mention,
Yes.
even
No.
at radio,
Yeah.
um, I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, I know all these program directors and music directors at all these radio stations across the country. I'm going to email them and tell them I got a single out, and I'm going to send them the single, and they're going to play it. And no one played it. And and then I had to hire someone, and then all of a sudden the floodgates open. Oh yeah, we got this single. I said, hey, I sent this to you. They were like, oh yeah, I saw it, but I didn't open it up. But when I got it from an
Uh-huh.
official person that works radio, then they looked at it.
Yeah.
So I mean, the whole learning curve was, I mean, it was costly. Fortunately, I was working enough live to
Yes.
have revenue coming in so that I could make these
Yes.
mistakes. But it was a learning process.
So how about you, Maysa? How can you give us your version of that? How was
Well,
that
no,
for you?
these things I've experienced so much uh, making these records happen, and especially working with the new album. So I've been doing singles so far, but the album thing is a whole new thing where
Mm, mm,
my issues have been like just raising money
yeah.
without doing the crowdfunding, which I thought about. I still thinking about doing the crowdfunding thing to help me with the radio promotion and stuff like that. Um, but for the most part, I think not so much mistakes I've made, but just trying to figure it all out. The learning curve to this thing is amazing. Like
Yeah.
everything I have to learn. Like right now, I'm sending out royalties. Like right now, I got all these. I got to send royalties to. I never had to send royalties before in my life, so now I had to learn how to. And my mentor who's really helped me build the label, and he said, Maysa, like I want to be compliant with everything. I want to make sure everything's right. I don't owe anybody
Yeah.
anything. So I don't, right now the
Yeah.
royalties I'm sending out are literally like $4.06
Yeah.
and $20, and
Yeah.
that's all it is right now, right? But I just saying, well, maybe I'll just wait, till a little while. But then when somebody, one of the publishing companies called me and said, "Where's my royalties?" And I literally owe this man $4.06.
Oh my.
He wants
Yeah,
his
well, yeah.
royalties.
Yeah, I get it. I
But
completely
this
get
is
it,
what
man.
I want. It comes with wanting a label. I wanted a label. I wanted it myself. I want to own everything. So now I'm going to send these royalties out. And one day it's going to be a lot. And I'll have to hire a company to take over that part, because I'm not going to be able to do everything. Like I literally
Right.
do everything. I send up my merchandising by myself. I do the live thing. I do the marketing. I do the publicity. I do the kitchen karaoke.
Wow.
I do
Yeah.
all of this to try to make this label happen. And so, and I kind of enjoy that it's all on me in some aspect. And sometimes I get frustrated, but I love my job so much that it's still
Wow.
a lot of joy in it. It's so much joy, and that so so it's just
And I
that's
can
all it
feel
is.
that as you're talking about it. I can
Yeah,
really
yeah,
feel like when you
yeah.
get up in the morning and you have to, you go like, yes, all right, good. This is on me. I got to
Yeah,
do it. And
yeah,
and so yeah, wow.
And
So
can I just say one thing to piggyback what
of
Mason
course.
just said, and actually it's not even to piggyback it, is to congratulate you for that, because
oh,
you've been an artist, where you didn't get a check,
right,
where you were sitting at home kind of saying, shouldn't I be getting a royalty? Shouldn't I be getting
right,
something?
right.
And so what you've done is you've looked at their model and said,
Mhm.
well, I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm actually going to send something. A
Yeah,
lot of times, artists never see a royalty. They
right,
get this big ass thing in the mail, or these days
Mhm.
email, and it's all these numbers just on this paper.
Yeah.
You can't even read it. And
yeah,
at the
right,
end, it just kind of basically says what you said earlier, like,
Yeah.
you owe us $250,000,
Yeah.
right,
and you've never received a royalty. So, I mean, you're to be
right,
commended for at least sending
Yeah.
out a check, regardless of
right,
whether it's $4.06
Yeah,
or whether it's
exactly.
4 cents. I
right.
mean, you're doing the right thing. So, I mean, you're to be,
Thank God.
commended for that.
Well, it is.
Thank
It's about integrity too, and it's also,
Exactly.
I pray, as I'm sure both of you do. It's like, how what you put out comes back, and the other way around is true. If you
Right.
try to, you know, you know, cheat people out of their money, we know how that could go too. So
Right.
it's
right.
really great that that you're both operating from that principle, and I think it really is commendable, really. And I liked about what you said, Mesa, and I very seldom heard anyone ever use this word in relationship to what they do in music. You said, "I love my job." And I really noticed you said that word because you're right. I mean, you are the president and CEO of your job,
Right.
but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it is a job.
Right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's brilliant. So now I want to talk about the thing that I think I'm most interested in hearing about from both of you, from the perspective of creativity and the freedom that being your own independent artist allows, distinct from what you might have had to deal with before. But let's not go to what you had to deal with before. Let's talk about the how it is for you, when you come to make a record and the creative choices and what's it like to just be free to be able to do what you want to do and know that your audience wants. So which of
Wow.
you would like to talk about that first?
Good,
Yes.
Mace.
Okay. It's just
You got the new
it's
heat out. You
amazing.
got the new heat. Come on, let
I
it
know.
say it.
It's an amazing feeling to have full control. Now, I have to admit, I have had control over my music the whole time. This whole 31 years, I've had control over. Well, not the incognito part, but especially my solo stuff from '95 to now.
Yeah.
The only rub that happened with one of my companies that I work for is that we had an issue over my album cover. The album cover, Blue Velvet Soul. They had found somehow, I don't know, we had taken some pictures and they were just kind of like, they were okay. And I was like, this album, I worked so hard on the music for that album. And that's the album that had Quiet Fire, where I got my first Grammy nomination. And so before this all happened, I knew that this album was really special. So I said, well, I didn't like the album cover that they chose. It looked like I had just picked some straw in the country or something. I was like, man, if you put this album cover, they're like, no, we're going with this cover. And I'm like, no, because if you choose that cover, no one will buy this album. And I've worked my tail off on this record. I know it's special. I know something great's gonna happen with it. So I need to do a new photo session. So I did a brand new photo session, which is the album cover that you see now. But there was a thing. They were like, no, we don't like that. We're gonna use the other country bumpkin album cover. And I was like, man, so it got to the point where this is the first time in my life I just screamed at who was my boss at the time. I laid that man out so bad. And I'd never do this. I'm so like trying to chill. But I had to let him know that, man, I said, I promise you, if you don't change to the album, to the pictures I just took, that I paid for, these brand new glamorous pictures, I said, I will leak this whole album myself.
So you really will be Maysa Leak. You'll be Maysa Leak for real. Like you'll be Maysa leaking. Leaking music.
The next day, he called me, my boss called me and said, okay, Maysa, we'll let you, okay, we'll go with you.
There you go. There you go. Apply that pressure. Apply that pressure.
Wow. That is a great story. I've never really. I'm always tempted to have you show us if you still have the artwork from what they were trying to put out.
Oh no, I can't even find that picture. I just
don't worry. We can picture.
No one will ever see that.
We can imagine.
Oh, it was just terrible. I was just like something like this on the. It was something dumb. It was real crazy. I was like, man, no. I didn't have any makeup on. I was like, why would you want that for my outfit? It's such a sweet, innocent picture of you. No, I don't want that. So that's how that ended.
But that's great. But you know what's great is that you stood your ground, and I guess in some way that it sounds like it prepared you for what you're doing now, like being someone who you don't have to go to someone and say, what should we do? What do we want to do? Who's gonna choose the album cover and blah, blah, blah. That's the point of this. I think that's the most important point. So how about you, Will? So tell us about your experiences with having the creative freedom to choose choose the covers, who you work with, the producers, and all the aspects of that.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, like I said before, we're creative, so we think we know who we are. We know what we do best. We know our best sounding and our best looking selves. So I mean, you'd like to be in control of that process. I think the only issue that I have sometimes, I get too close to the music. And a few times I've been, well, more than a few times, a lot of times I've been this is wrong as two left shoes when it was all said and done. And I'm like, this is gonna be, and this is gonna be it, and and you go with it. It's like everybody's kind of going. It's like I spent how many hours, and you don't understand. I'm in here boo-hooing while I'm singing and doing it, and it just they just listen to it for the 4 minutes and kind of go, yeah, I ain't feeling it. So that's the part that hurts. But also when I was with a label, there's been a couple of times where I kind of pushed back to what they wanted me to do, and I ended up doing it, and they ended up being right. So it's I mean, when I recorded the song "I Go Crazy," I hated. I hated that song with everything in me. With everything in me, I hated that song. I was working a day job. I'm sorry, someone's calling me. Of course, probably. Hey, get off my phone. Yeah. So someone was. I used to work a day job, And above my head was the speaker to the system. They always played music throughout the day. And so I heard that song, the original version, I mean, 5 times a day. So I would be sitting at work and working. All of a sudden, I would hear ding, 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 ding. And God. And I hated the song. And then when I became an artist, we were in the studio, and the president called at the time. It's a guy named Mike Bone. He called and he's like, I'm sending over this song that I want you to do. And, you got to do it. And they, this is the days of cassettes. And a messenger showed up with an envelope. And, I get the cassette and I put the song in. And what do I hear? Ding, 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 ding. I'm like, no.
And then you went crazy.
And then I went crazy. But, we ended up doing it and the song became a smash.
Yeah.
So go figure. I ain't always
Oh.
right.